Release of the crime scene. Release of the crime scene is done if the investigator is satisfied that all pieces of evidence have been recovered. He must bear in mind that upon the formal release of the crime scene to the proper authority, the warrant is already required for his re-entry to the crime scene. Conduct a final survey. The team leader makes the final review on the crime scene to determine whether or not the processing is completed or has been completed. Procedures needed for the care of physical evidence. In order to introduce physical evidence in court, in order to produce physical evidence in court, three important factors must be considered. First, the article must be properly identified. The chain of custody must be proved. The evidence must be material and relevant. Number 6. The chain of custody or possession is the number of persons who handled and possessed the piece of evidence the moment they were collected, marked and tagged up to the time of the final disposition of the case. As a rule, all seized evidence must be in the custody of the evidence custodian and deposited in the evidence room. Tagging of evidence. It is done through movable object wherein marking of any of it is not possible. Tag must contain the marking and other information about the specimen. Number 8. Preservation of evidence is the investigator's responsibility to ensure that every precaution is exercised to preserve physical evidence in the state in which it was obtained or recovered until its release to the evidence custodian. Collection of evidence. This is accomplished after the search was completed, rough sketches are finished, and photographs are taken. Fragile evidence should be collected as they are found. All firearms found to have tampered serial numbers shall be automatically subjected to macro-etching at the PNP Crime Laboratory. A corresponding request from the Firearms and Explosive Office must be made for verification purposes. Marking of evidence. Any physical evidence obtained must be marked or tagged before its submission to the evidence custodian. The investigator places his initials, the date and time of the discovery of each evidence for proper identification. Marking on the specimen. Strip search method. In this method, the area is blocked out in the form of rectangle. The three searchers A, B, and C proceed slowly at the same pace along paths parallel to one side of the rectangle. When a piece of evidence is found, the finder announces his discovery and the search must stop until the evidence has been cleared off. Double strip search method. The double strip, or also known as grid method of search, is modification of the strip search method. Here, the rectangle is transversed first parallel to the base, then parallel to a side. It is useful for large crime scene and crime scene particularly outdoor crime scenes. Spiral search method. In this method, the three searchers follow each other along the path of a spiral, beginning on the outside and spiraling in toward the center. From the word itself is spiral. Zone search method, or quadrant or sector. In this method, one searcher is assigned to each subdivision of a quadrant, and then each quadrant is cut into another set of quadrants. Number 15. 15 na ba? 15. Wheel search method, or also known as pi-radial or spoke method, is a method of search wherein the area is considered to be approximately circular. The searchers gather at the center and proceed outward. Point to point. Number 16. Searchers will stand in a straight line and move forward together. Triangulation method. An object is located by drawing through two straight lines from two fixed points, creating a triangle. The object is an angle formed by the line. This sketching method requires measuring the distance of an object along a straight line from two widely separated fixed reference points. Rectangular method. This method uses two walls in a room as fixed points from which distance are measured at right angle to the object. Baseline or coordinate method. A sketching method that makes measurements along from a single reference line called a baseline, which can be established by using a length of string, chalk line, or some other convenient means. Compass point method. Point method is number 20. A sketching method that requires a protractor or some method of measuring angles between two lines. One point is selected as the origin and then a line extends from the origin, becomes an axis from which the angles can be measured. Cross projection method. A sketching method in which the ceiling appears to open up like a lid of hinged box with the four walls opening outward. Measurements are then indicated from a point on the floor to the wall. Azimuth or polar coordinates number 22. These methods requires two people, one hold each end of a tape measure. This is best suited for large pen areas where there might not be any reference points by using a handled GPS. Sketch number 23. Sketch or locality or neighborhood sketch gives picture of the scene of the crime and its environs, including neighbors, buildings, roads, and etc. Sketch of the ground floor plan or overview. Pictures of the scene of the crime with its nearest physical surrounding. Sketch in details, the immediate scene only. Exploded cross projection gives the clear impression of the scene in cases wherein blood stains or bullet holes are found. There are elements of sketch. First element is the measurement. Second, the compass direction. Third, essential items. Fourth, scale and proportion. Fifth, legend. Sixth, title. And seven, rough sketch. Ay, 7. Wala, 6 lang pala, sir. Rough sketch. It is made by investigators. Wait lang po. Rough sketch is made by the investigators at the crime scene, which is full of important details but without scale or proportion. Rough sketch are the basis for the finished sketch. Rough sketch is the first pencil drawn outline of the scene and the location of objects and evidence within its outline. Finished sketch is often drawn by draftsman to show proper relationship and scales. The finished sketch is more presentable for court presentations. Crime scene sketch, it is the graphic representation of the scene of the crime with complete measurement of the relative distance of relevant objects and conditions obtaining therein. General view or long range view. Photograph of the overall scene. It will depict the location of the crime. The distance is from the doorway of the room and the other corners of the room. Mid-range photograph shows the nature of the crime. The distance is from 8 feet to 10 feet from the victim. Close-up photograph, this shows the detail of the crime. The distance is 5 feet or less from the subject or object. Usually, sir, sa close-up photographs, andito rin yung Nafo-photograph din dito yung physical injuries ng victim. Next one is guidelines for taking photographs of a crime scene. Photographs should be taken as soon as possible before note-taking. Sketching or search for evidence begins. It must show the original uncontaminated condition of the crime scene. Photograph of the crime scene only should be taken without spectators or police personnel. It must be from an organized sequence and shows all relevant locations and objects. It must be taken from general to specific. Crime scene photography. It is conducted to create an accurate, objective, visual, and permanent record of the crime scene before any item is moved or removed as possible evidence. It is recommended to take as many photographs as you can. That is the general rule na discuss po namin nun. And as you can be giving emphasis to possible physical evidence. Next one is the 4 priorities of the FRs upon arrival of the crime scene. First priority, to give first aid or try to save life. If possible, apprehend the suspected offender, protect and if necessary collect and preserve evidence, and to cordon off and protect the area, and then investigate. Next is corpus delicti, is the body of the crime or fact of specific loss or injury sustained. It constitutes the essential parts of elements in the commission of the crime. Associate associate pa yun. Associate evidence. These are the piece of evidence that links the suspect to the crime scene. The suspect may leave some clues at the scene, such as the weapons, the tools, and the garments. Death from asphyxia, a condition in which the supply of oxygen to the blood or to the tissue or to the both has been reduced below normal working level. Death from coma is that state of unconsciousness with insensibility of the pupil and conjunctive and inability to swallow, resulting from the arrest of the functions of the brain. Death from starvation or inanition. Death from starvation or inanition is the deprivation of a regular and constant supply of food and water necessary to normal health of a person. Acute starvation is when necessary food has been suddenly and completely withheld from a person. Chronic starvation is when there is a gradual or deficient supply of food. Wound brought about by blunt instrument. These are contusions, hematoma, and laceration. Wound brought about by sharp instrument, incision, puncture, and stab. Wound brought about by tearing force or the laceration. Wound brought about by change of atmospheric pressure, the barotrauma. Wound brought about by heart. Wound brought about by heat or cold. Frostbite, like frostbite burns. Wound brought about by chemical explosions like gunshots and shrapnels. Superficial, when the wound involves only the layers of our skin. Deep, when the wound involves the inner structure beyond the layers of the skin. Penetrating, one in which the wound agent enters the body but did not come out, or the mere piercing of a solid organ or tissue of the body. Ano yung next? Perforating, when the wound agent produces communication between the inner and outer portion of the hollow organs. the point of entry and exit of instrument. Next is cooling of the body or the algor mortis 2 hours after the death. Next one is the cadaveric rigidity or death struggle of muscles or rigor mortis. The whole body becomes rigid due to the contraction of the muscles. This develops 3 to 6 hours after the death and may last from 24 to 36 hours or 2 days to 3 days. Coagulation in the blood, post-mortem lividity or cadaveric lividity, or post-mortem sugillation or post-mortem hypostasis or livor mortis. Putrefaction or the decay of the muscles. The muscles become flaccid, no longer capable of responding to mechanical or electrical stimulus, and the reaction becomes alkaline. Anoxia. At a higher altitude, the oxygen content of the atmosphere becomes lesser and lesser. Coup injury. Physical injury which is located at the site of the application of force. Contre-coup injury. Physical injury found opposite the site of the application force. Coup contre-coup injury. The physical injury located at the site and also opposite the site of the application of force. Locus minoris resistentia. Physical injury located not at the site nor opposite the site of the application of force but in some areas offering the least resistance to the force applied. Extensive injuries are physical injury involving a greater area of the body beyond the site of the application of force. Mortal wound caused immediately after infliction or shortly thereafter that is capable of causing death. Special crime investigation is the investigation of cases that are unique and often require special training to fully understand their broad significance, like homicide, robbery, rape and sexual offense, kidnapping, carnapping, explosions, and illegal recruitment and terrorism. Terrorism activities are example of cases that call for special crime investigations. Carnapping is the taking with the intent to gain of motor vehicles belonging to another without the latter consent, or by means of violence against or intimidation of persons, or by using force upon things. Kidnapping for ransom is a criminal act more particularly described as the unlawful taking of and carrying away of a person by force or fraud and against his or her will, or in manners depriving him or his or her liberty for the purpose of extorting ransoms as payments for his release. Kidnap for ransom is a common term used to describe a specific criminal act punishable under the Article 267 of the rules of the RPC entitled Kidnapping and Serious Illegal Detention. Ransom, these are the money, the price, or the consideration paid or demanded for redemption of a captured person or persons. This is usually a payment in order for him or her to be released from captivity. For the continuation, crime mapping allows the general public and the community. Ay, wait lang. Hindi yun, sir. Number 80 pa lang ako. Number 80, organized crime is one that conjures up the image of single large secret criminal organization. Although the term is usually associated with the well-known crime syndicates, it is also described as many other crime organizations with similar with similar characteristics. Organized crime pertains to the group of suspects who have formed highly organized, disciplined association engaged in many criminal activities. Computer hacking is the most favorable use. The term computer hacker signifies a compulsive computer programmer who explores, tests, and pushes the computer to its limits regardless of the consequences. In reality, it can involve the destruction of it can involve the destructions of valuable data, resulting in massive cost. Crime mapping allows the general public and the community to view up-to-date crime incidents within the region. The information provided online is limited to the basic attributes of the crime and does not expose the victim's identity or the suspect. Crime mapping is a very important tool in managing and controlling crime in an area. By analyzing the spatial and temporal data provided by maps, investigators are able to understand the crime patterns and trend. It also helps in resources allocation and in geographic profiling of criminals and suspicious locations. Another thing is that crime mapping allows the PNP organization to be able to prepare for the possibilities. Although hindi lahat ng problems can be predicted, it somehow allows them to formulate possible solutions or alternatives in order to combat crime. Next is legal medication. Legal medication is the branch of medicine which deals with the application of medical knowledge to the purpose of law and its administration of justice. Forensic medicine concerned with the application of medical science to elucidate legal problems. 87 na ba yun? 87 na physician is specialized or involved in primarily with medical legal duties is known as the medical jurist. Medical jurist or medical examiner or medical legal officer or medical legal expert. Imhotep is the earliest record of medical legal expert. Hippocrates is discussed the lethality of wounds. Antistius, the first police surgeon or forensic pathologist. Paulus Zacchaeus, a papal physician regarded as the father of forensic medicine. Orfilia introduced the chemical methods in toxicology. Next one, law of multiplicity of evidence in identification. The law is that the greater the number of points of similarities and dissimilarities of two persons compared, the greater is the possibility for the conclusion to be correct. This is known as the yun yung walang katuloy, sir. Next is death. Death is the termination of life. It is the complete cessation of all the vital functions without possibility of resuscitation. It is an irreversible loss of the properties of living matter. Somatic death or clinical death is the state of the body in which there is complete, persistent, and continuous cessation of the vital functions of the brain, heart, and lungs, which maintain life and health. Molecular or cellular death is the evidence by the presence of excitability of muscles, ancillary movements, and other functions of individual cells about 3 to 6 hours later the death of individual cells. Autopsy is a comprehensive study of a dead body performed by a trained physician employing recognized dissection procedure and techniques. Post-mortem examination refers to an external examination of the dead body without incision being made. Although blood and other function fluids may be collected for examination, cause of death is the injury disease of the combination of both injury and disease responsible for the initiation, the trend or physiological disturbance, brief or prolonged, which produces the fatal termination. Death from syncope due to the sudden and fatal cessation of the action of the heart with circulation included. That's all, sir, and God bless po.